I've decided I cannot take vacation. Too much to count. There's too much to catch up on. It's true. I come back chomping at the bit. There's all, and by the way, every time I go on vacation, this has happened historically with the radio. We're wrapping up year one, by the way, of Dan York's State of Mind television. But historically, whenever I go on vacation, something unusually large happens. I wouldn't say this year it was incredibly dramatic, but beach contract issues and Federal Hill, blowing up and all that kind of stuff. Always when I go away. So I got another vacation coming up next week, so count on something, rather unusual out of the news cycle happening. It is great to have you aboard. Thank you very much for joining me on my State of Mind. Yes, I am back for a week of original programs. Hey, we all got to take a break during the summer. I hope you enjoyed some of our repeat programs from last week. Dan McGowan is my guest tonight. He is our guy from WPRI.com. And we're going to do something a little bit different this evening. Rather than me just spouting off about everything I'm brilliant about, we're going to kind of go down our rundown and share thoughts back and forth on some of these stories that caught my attention coming back from a vacation. So let's go to the rundown. I'll let you know. Too busy, please. David Caprio, the chairman of the Democratic Party, had to resign because of this beach contract controversy, but he said he was too busy. He was that's just too busy, as opposed to too jammed up. We'll talk about it. An economic crisis, I think when Federal Hill is in trouble, I think that's an economic crisis. I don't think it's just an isolated problem. That was my sentiment today on the radio over our dead bodies. Because frankly, to be honest with you, when we talk about this, I hope you have the same kind of feeling about our taxpayer money being used for legal fees for our state reps. We'll elaborate on that. What else do we have here this evening? Yeah, it seems like, hey, Angel not such a bad guy is the Gina for Governor theme, which is very, very strange. Of course, there's feelings amongst pollsters that the race is getting tighter, and there's an honest ad, too, out there that is actually quite funny from Jess's grab bag that we found, and it's a good chuckle. So having said that, let's dig in a little bit. And again, we're going to spread out our rundown over the course of the program with Dan McGowan from WPRI.com. Too busy, please. That was my thought when I looked at this stuff this evening. Here's the headline that you guys have seen, or a series of headlines on WPRI.com chronicling David Caprio resigning as the Democratic Party chairman. Amidst this document investigation where we'll explain how it seems like we might have a little bit of, potential collusion going on and the like. The discussion is a unique one. Say hi to Dan. Dan, welcome. Nice to see you.
Thanks for having me on.
And thank you for joining me. We've referred to your work often, but this is the first time you've been on the show?
This is the first shot.
Excellent.
Try not to screw it up.
Dude, actually, I'm sure you will. My thought on this whole thing was he announced that he was too busy. Like his work and his business and his family and whatever else, simultaneously with this information coming out that he was jammed up. Didn't you think that was kind of disingenuous on his part?
Well, sure. I mean, certainly, as you know, you're no stranger to scandal and covering scandal. There's always another reason when they give, their reason for resignation. And
but this is too obvious.
Sure. And if he has known about it for as long as it appears, there's been an ongoing investigation in the state police for some time now. You would have thought that he'd have jumped out of the position sooner than the day after a story breaks.
All right. So this got kind of complicated, right? We've got the situation where the beach contracts, the concession contracts for the beach, I should say, are under investigation. And also the health issues at these particular fine eateries on the beach are under some kind of scrutiny. We've got an Eyewitness News piece on this to kind of elaborate for you.
3 beach concession stands, the ones at Misquamicut, Roger Wheeler, and Scarborough beaches, had dozens of food safety violations after a July 2nd inspection. The report lists many, many issues. That includes meat thawing in stagnant water and a foul odor coming from a grease trap.
New places, you get new management, you get teenagers often, working in the kitchens, there are mistakes, and procedures aren't in place yet.
Yes, there's new management at these snack bars, and the management has come under scrutiny. That's because the state awarded the contract to run these stands to former Democratic Party chair David Caprio. Caprio resigned as chair this week as state police investigate how Caprio won the bid. Julian said Caprio has been responsive with his office, and the former party chair has corrected the problems.
All right, so there's two separate parts of the story. One, it wasn't so healthy to eat there, possibly. By the way, 70+ violations, that is not normal. So I don't care what the Department of Health is doing to smooth this whole thing over. And now everything seems to be copacetic. That's worthy of a WPRI.com Dan McGowan investigation in of itself, and I'm not kidding.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. I mean, remember, we only find out about the health violations because of the ongoing investigation, right? I mean, there are health violations all over the state and at various
restaurants. Is that how it came out? Again, me being away for a week, tell me about that. The health stuff came out of the contract stuff.
Absolutely. I think it was simply digging a little deeper. You know,
was it the Woonsocket call that first broke it?
I believe it was the Woonsocket call that first broke it, and I would assume that they wanted to get another angle on the story, and they looked it up. It was a pretty easy thing to look up, and they noticed.
Makes you a little queasy about having a little chow at the beach.
Makes you very concerned.
Well, the other thing is that I would think that when there's violations of as many as there were cumulatively between the 3 spots that are in question, that it's just fine now. Well, or it got fined fast.
Right.
That's
Well, and you know, I've covered a little bit of health code violations at different places over the years, and you know what you find out is that there's a lot of there's not a lot of leeway, but they give you, you know, they hand you a report, they tell you what they think they found, and then they give you that time to correct it. Sounds like most of the violations were corrected, although, like you said, 70 is not one.
Right.
Right? That's usually what I'm dealing with.
All right. So the story that actually gave birth to the health violations is the contractual story. And it seems to me, if I understand it correctly, that the state of Rhode Island put out a bid for a multi-year contract, 3 years, I guess.
3-year deal, yep.
For concessions. And State Representative Peter Palumbo made a bid on $1.7 million, and won it as high bidder, but couldn't execute, correct?
The money, right.
Second bidder is David Caprio, former state rep, Democratic Party chairman, Caprio family, brother of Frank, running for treasurer. Again, son of the judge. He's at 1.5. So somehow he gets the contract as the second runner-up bidder, but then hires the first bidder to operate. Is that how it goes?
I think you've got it exactly right. The big question that we don't know the answer to is, was there some sort of, and this is the thing that I'm sure the state police are looking at too, is was there some sort of wink and nod sort of agreement? It doesn't appear, at least, that anyone's reported that just yet, but certainly it looks suspicious when somebody gets basically a $200,000 break on a contract with the state.
There are ethics laws against elected officials bidding on having employment, subcontractor, contractor. Duh. Isn't there a huge duh factor from the state administration, right to Palumbo, right to Caprio?
Well, you're exactly right, but as I think, again, from covering things like this throughout the years, no one ever, it never seems that bad until you get caught, right? So this is one of those situations where they probably thought it was.
But how do you procure a bid, knowing that there's already ethics conduct rules against you while being a sitting rep, or no more than a year out? The revolving door policy is that you've got to be out of office for a year in order to be able to do fiduciary business with the state of Rhode Island.
Right. I assume that it's something that the Ethics Commission will eventually take up. They haven't done it yet, and you're asking a good question. Why not?
Well, usually the state police, would come in after an ethics violation.
Sure, like
the Ethics
Gordon
Commission
Fox
will come in behind a state police investigation.
Absolutely.
What a mess. How do you think this impacts Frank Caprio's treasury bid? I love my brother, I love my brother. Between the Democrats who are more or less saying, oh, it's awful, but really didn't take him on for this baloney about being too busy to leave the chairmanship. I mean, how about a little bit of honesty all the way around?
Sure. Well, and if you look at the 2 commercials that Seth Magaziner, Frank's opponent, put out last week, you were away, but they're, very much insider politics. We don't want business as usual. I think you can certainly expect Seth to take more shots at that, because it's a layup for an opponent.
No doubt. When we come back, Federal Hill had a little challenge, and has a little bit of a challenge. We'll talk about that. Dan's done some work on that story, so stay tuned.
And he, the solicitor, just poisoned the well.
After an often raucous hearing, the Providence Board of Licenses voted to keep the $3 bar shut down at least until board members can view a videotape shot the night of the melee.
What makes my crowd rough? Because they're darker than him? Because they're poor? They have shorts
No,
like
because
him?
they fight and because other people don't want to come to their restaurants if it's
So you're
violent
saying that
around
I
on
have-
federal law. I'm telling you what they're telling me.
So what they're telling you is that I have this magic ability that I'm able to focus and reach all these delinquent people who don't know how to behave. But nobody wants to identify what class of people, what kind of walk of life are these people from?
You know, that's an intellectually dishonest approach. I think it's a crisis on Federal Hill. I think it's an economic crisis for Rhode Island when Federal Hill has a problem with safety. I got an email from somebody, oh, because you don't remember Raymond. You know what? I'm not sanctioning organized crime. I'm just saying it was probably safer up there. Raymond didn't let a lot of crap go on Federal Hill. That is something that if you're in Utah on vacation, people say, oh, you're from Rhode Island? Oh, I've been to Federal Hill. That's a very important spot to be safe. Don't you agree, Dan?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's also one of those places where it's one of the few landmarks in Providence. If you're a wealthy person from outside of state and you want to send your kid to college, they get into Brown.
That's hey, and there's Federal Hill.
Exactly.
So here's the headline that we've been talking about here regarding, or the series of headlines. You know, actually, I'm not sure that we've got. Oh yeah, Federal Hill mayor. That's right. Mayor candidates ramp up enforcement of Federal Hill. The discussion of at least on it. A lot of $3 bar owner. You know, his suggestion that we can be baited into a race conversation of some kind. Look, as a buddy of mine said to me on the golf course this week, as we were just catching up on some stuff, he goes, "You call something a $3 bar, you're gonna get trouble. It's about economics, not about the color of your skin." And by the way, you know, this Walmart comparison. Last time I checked, you don't get drunk at Walmart. Yes? No?
Well,
fill me in on this story.
Sure. One of the really interesting thing here is that this is all, and it's a little complicated, but it's all a zoning problem, right? So for a long time, this issue's been going on for several years now. Specifically, Mr. Morocco, John Franco Morocco, has been
The gentleman in the video who owns Mediterraneo.
who owns
Wonderful
Mediterraneo
restaurant.
and several other places across the hill and actually throughout the city, has been clashing with some of the more traditional restaurant owners on Federal Hill because he has these hookah bars, he has a nightclub, and then this place, the $3 bar, only recently opened. It used to be a Michi, which was a nice little place as well. They decided to make it a $3 bar, and as he says it, it was simply a good investment by him. You know, making it cheaper, you do attract a different clientele. You attract it's not minorities, it's college students, right? In the spring and in the fall, you get kids to come in, but that's a different element than what Federal Hill is used to, and that's the problem.
Listen, mass quantities of booze see no color.
Right.
You know, and if you want Federal Hill to be a nice stroll for people who are families, you know, mom and dad want to go out for a nice or bring the family out. We don't have to re-explain to everybody who goes to Federal Hill. Right. You can't have trouble on Federal Hill. It's become political in the mayor's race. Mm-hmm. I think it ought to be political in the governor's race. Now the mayor is running for governor, Mayor Taveras, but I think this is an economic conversation. Everybody ought to weigh in on this.
Sure. Well, it's something that the mayor has. This is something the mayor's dealt with, like I said, for several years now, but you haven't seen as much attention to it paid recently until you see trouble pop up, and the mayor has attempted to say we want to strip the license of the $3 bar, but again, that's one place, right? There are several on the hill, like I said, hookah bars, nightclubs that you're going to have to address if you really want to take that element off the hill.
By the way, the hookah bar is not safer. It's not healthy what the kids are doing. It's gross, by the way. Have you done it?
I've never done it. I will say it is also something that the city is really trying to crack down on because
it's disgusting.
It's also it's not legal. A lot of these places don't have a license to sell tobacco, right? And that's another big issue that hasn't been enforced very well.
Let me cut to a headline real quick here on another subject matter. Over the theme of over our dead bodies. I just wanted to make a quick mention of this. I saw this on WPRI.com, the source where you can grab Dan's work and of course Ted Nisi's work all the time. Speaker Mattiello has more or less opened up a legal concierge for state reps in 2010 who voted yes on the loan guarantee program that gave you 38 studios. Quick thought on this from you? I mean, my thought is, over our dead bodies, do the taxpayers fund the legal issues for these reps? Either you did nothing and you don't need legal representation, and if you do, hit it your campaign fund or your own personal lawyer. We don't have to pay for your obliviousness or your deviousness.
Well, I suppose, and I suppose on the other side, I don't disagree with that by any means, Dan, but I guess I would say on the other side, this is, a vote that they took, and so maybe they're protected by, having a lawyer.
Indemnification, I get it. Some smart people that go, hey, listen, you work for a corporation, you make a mistake, you get corporate counsel.
Yeah.
I see this as an entirely different matter. I see this as a bunch of reps who have said, we know nothing. All you need is a $200 piece of advice from someone to explain to you how to go in and say, we know nothing. Right. General counsel, whatever the speaker's got going on here, seems to me might be more of a plot to be information managing than it is to be offering protection to state representatives. By the way, it's civil litigation, it's not criminal.
Right. Well, and the one thing that we weren't quite clear on, though, was it related to the civil litigation, or is it related to the probe that we're, we know is ongoing with the
I'm
state
under the
police?
impression that it's subpoenas for the civil litigation. Is it not?
We were under the understanding that they haven't commented further, and so we don't know the answer to that question.
Either way, if they're jammed up, get your own damn lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
All right. See, he doesn't offer the opinions. I do. But he's good. He's good. When we come back, the governor's race. There's a theme. It's a weird theme, too. True. Alrighty, so let's check in on the governor's race. I have this notion that we've got kind of a Gina theme running, and it's all about Angel, the mayor. That it's just that. And the governor's race, maybe getting tighter on the Democratic side. Anyway, I had this thought, Gina theme and governor race getting tighter. You saw the rundown. Dan McGowan is my guest from WPRI.com. Your thought on the governor's race right now? She's had this new concept that she's going to take Angel out by making sure she's got regular people in TV ads telling stories, driving cars around the city, saying he ain't such a bad guy, but, right?
Right. Well, that is all polling data, right? They're looking at this, and the same both public and private information that I've seen is, Angel is very popular, and so it's hard to tear that part down. So you do he's not a bad guy, but he's kind of a bad guy, and then you attack him that way. Crime, you attack him on the number of police officers.
But the
things
theme
like that.
is he's not a bad guy, but he's more of the same. The risk Gina runs, I think, is her cliches are becoming more of the same. She's turned into a complete robot. I've never seen anybody who is, you can say she's very politically disciplined, and she can reward her consultants with high fives and God knows what if she wins. Or you can say she's become a whole lot less the real person she was when she was battling for pension reform, right?
Right. Well, you're exactly right. She's been on message throughout her campaign. The question is, does the message actually work? You go back and you look at the 2011 pension reform. She was out there. She was on your show a bunch. She was on every show. She made herself very available, even for the people that didn't like her. You couldn't argue that she did it behind closed doors, that she was hiding. The problem is, her decision now is to sort of stay on message, stay quiet.
So now we're talking about war chests and the governor's race and Clay Pell and the like. We've got a little piece from Eyewitness News. Can we run that?
Still seeing that Gina Raimondo is a money machine. She raised $750,000 this quarter. I think that's probably surprised some people with the size of the amount of money that she's raised.
Take a look at the numbers. On the Democratic side, newcomer Clay Pell has more than $2 million in his account. General Treasurer Gina Raimondo has nearly $3 million, and Providence Mayor Angel Taveras has $1.3 million. On the Republican side, the numbers are much smaller. Businessman Ken Block leads with nearly $600,000, while Cranston Mayor Alan Fung trails with less than $400,000.
Well, the main takeaway, this is probably going to be the most expensive governor's primary we've seen in the state of Rhode Island.
Joe Fleming, of course. Is Pell catching up? Have we, the media, been pushing the idea that Pell's catching up, or are we privy to some inside polling data that the public hasn't seen?
I think most of the idea that Pell's catching up is very anecdotal at this point. We won't poll until the end of August. However, it certainly appears that way. Certainly, their push, the Pell message is pushing. We're gaining ground every day. And if you look at $2 million in the bank, he's loaned himself more than $3 million since last fall.
Just not to interrupt, but Sean's piece there, $2 million for Pell, could be $4 if he wants it.
That's right. It could be anything if he wants it. And what you've seen so far with him is he's run these very, I think they've been pretty solid commercials. Nothing that knocks it out of the park, but hitting the theme over and over. We're going to build on infrastructure. We're going to build on schools, things like that. I think it is starting to resonate. Just again, anecdotally, when I talk to people, when I get emails from people, they like a guy that has plans.
Angel's in trouble in this race, it feels like.
He still has $1 million and $1.3 million in the bank, so he certainly has enough money to be competitive.
It's hard to be the mayor. The old mayor's running for mayor, going to tell you about all the problems in the city.
Absolutely.
Having a mayor race about all the problems in the city and trying to be the governor.
Well, and go back to Joe Palino couldn't do it, Buddy Cianci couldn't do it before him. It's a very difficult thing to become the governor from being the mayor.
Good to hang out, man.
Yeah, it's always fun.
Dan McGowan, WPRI.com. Final word and we can back to it. So we told you that we found from Jess's grab bag the most honest ad we've seen in American politics in a while, except I'm out of time and you'll have to see it tomorrow night. Perfect reason to be here at 7:30. In the meantime, want to have some feedback on what Dan McGowan had to say or what I had to say. You know how that works. 228-1886. We'll play some. We got some funny voicemails too for tomorrow night that I think you'll get a kick out of. State of Mind at myritv.com, as well as the email. You can Facebook post and tweet as well. All right. So big week, lots going on. Almost down the final stretch in the Democratic primaries and Republican primaries for 2014. So it shall be a busy week that we shall share together. And of course, we'll see you on the radio at noon tomorrow until 3 on WPRO, and back here tomorrow night at 7:30, at 11:30, and online at WPRI.com. Good night. Thanks.